Today, the seventh day of the Novena in preparation for the feast of St. Anne, as pilgrims of hope, we reflect on the great theme of the meaning of life, which is at the heart of Gaudium et Spes, one of the four constitutions from the Second Vatican Council, which Pope Francis has invited us to revisit in the view of the Jubilee year 2025. During the height of COVID-19, Pope Francis on the 27th of March 2020, in an empty and rain-soaked St. Peter's Square, at a time when people were dying in hospitals, families were locked up in their homes, young people were deprived of their happiness, jobs were being lost, and the poor were becoming even poorer, he said, "We find ourselves afraid and lost. Like the disciples in the gospel, we were caught off guard by an unexpected turbulent storm. We have realized that we are on the same boat, all of us, fragile and disoriented." 2 years after COVID, thanks to the vaccines, we were finally able to see a light, though dim, at the end of the tunnel. But as we prepared for a possible coexistence with COVID, another black cloud fell over the world. Russia invades Ukraine, and this destroys lives and homes, ports and businesses, and has plunged Europe back into the nightmare of war that has not been seen in this part of the planet for 70 years. Here too, we asked ourselves, why? What does it mean? Reflecting on suffering children, Pope Francis said, "There is a question whose explanation one does not learn in catechism lessons. It is a question that I have often asked myself, and many of you, many people ask themselves, why do children suffer? And there are no explanations. This is also a mystery. I only look at God and ask, but why?" We search for meaning in the face of the mystery of death, the ever-looming threat of nuclear catastrophe, the pangs of war and hunger, migrants desperate, searching for a place to live a dignified life, and the poor who are increasing year by year in the world. Progress has not helped to reduce the gap that in every generation divides those who have too much from those who have too little or nothing to make ends meet. And every jolt, from pandemics to wars, from climate change to financial crises, has an immediate impact on the most fragile. Poverty, another mystery of life, another open wound in humanity with respect to which we must try to find a meaning. One of the hallmarks of the pontificate of Pope Francis is the care he has shown to prisoners. He used to visit them in Buenos Aires when he was the Archbishop of the Argentine capital. And he has continued to do so as Pope. The world behind bars is a reality to be looked upon with mercy, because deep down, even giving into the temptation of crime remains a mystery. In his meeting with prison chaplains in October 2013, Pope Francis explained it thus: "I think, why is he there and not I, who have so many and different reasons to be there? Why did he fall and I did not? This is a mystery that makes me pray and makes me draw close to inmates. Why him and not me is therefore a question for which we seek an answer. War and disease, poverty and injustice, the fear of death, the anguish of every day. How difficult it is sometimes to live. Today, as yesterday, there is no generation that has not had to face its deep personal and collective crises. How many times must one descend into the abyss without knowing how to climb back? Yet, there is meaning, even in these situations that seem hopeless. And often the answers to the most impossible questions do not come, as we would expect, from science or politics or economics or technology or studies or hard work. It is not the vaccine or even the peace negotiations. It is not the progress or democratic revolutions. We need all this, but alone they are not enough. In brief, the profound meaning Gaudium et Spes indicates can only be given by the one who considers us his children, who thought about us even before our birth and wanted each person to be unique, unrepeatable, indispensable on this earth. This is the meaning of life that the church offers to humanity and that Pope Paul VI, with the bishops of the council, wanted to explain in his pastor constitution, which would close the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council. Gaudium et Spes Article 10 asks some big existential questions. What is man? What is the sense of sorrow, of evil, of death, which continues to exist despite so much progress? What purpose have these victories purchased at so high a cost? What can man offer to society? What can he expect from it? What follows this earthly life? Faced with these questions which recur from generation to generation, we read in Gaudium et Spes that the church has always had the duty of scrutinizing the signs of the times and of interpreting them in the light of the gospel. Thus, in the language intelligible to each generation, she can respond to the perennial questions which people ask about this present life and the life to come, and about the relationship of the one to the other. We must therefore recognize and understand the world in which we live, its explanations, its longings, and its often dramatic characteristics. Beginning with these considerations, the church moves on to give answers to the great questions. She therefore sets out from the daily life of each one, from the heart of the great events of history, from human hardships and joys, from interpersonal relationships. It is a very concrete proclamation made of flesh and tears. God is not a wise old man with a white beard, as is sometimes represented, especially for the little ones, who remains reclining on a distant cloud as if he had sunk comfortably in an armchair. He has chosen to become man, to incarnate himself, to share man's sufferings and joys. Christ is not just a legendary hero. For those who believe he really existed 2000 years ago, he is the Nazarene, born in one of the peripheral regions of the world, who to proclaim his message of salvation walked the dusty streets, ate with people, cried and laughed. Yes, we are absolutely certain that he laughed, even if the Gospels unfortunately refrain from giving us this image, which would bring him even closer to us. And in the end, Jesus Christ chose to die in the most infamous way of his day, hanging on a cross. He wanted to get his hands dirty, to immerse himself in the smells and moods of his people. In this context of hunger, suffering, injustice, evil, death, we can ask, can science give an answer for everything? Fabiola Giannotti arrives at CERN in Geneva, the European Council for Nuclear Research, equipped with an outstanding curriculum vitae, enough to allow her to break that glass ceiling that would want only males in leadership positions, even in scientific institutions. In 2012, she was the member of the team that detected the Higgs boson, the so-called God particle, and in 2016, she became general manager of the prestigious center in Switzerland. She is one of the most influential scientists and women generally in the world. So much so that the Time magazine in 2012, the year of that marvelous scientific discovery, featured her on its cover. In a 2021 interview this time with Gianni Minoli, she spoke of science and faith. I think science and religion are two separate domains. They do not contradict each other. Science will never be able to demonstrate the existence or non-existence of God. It is a situation of parallelism of different approaches. And she explained why she believes in God. What I see in nature, its order, its simplicity, its elegance, brings me closer to the idea of an intelligent and ordering mind. Because nature is beautiful, even the fundamental laws of physics are extremely beautiful from an aesthetic standpoint. They are simple, essential, and almost self-motivating. And she says, yes, I believe in God. Pope Francis also teaches that science and faith can go together. On the occasion of the World Science Day in November 2020, he tweeted, "Society is enriched by the dialogue between science and faith, which opens new horizons to thought. Scientific progress must be illumined by the light of faith so that it respects the centrality of the human person." Now, what about atheism? In Albania, the communist dictatorship of Enver Hoxha removed any trace of religion in the country for over 40 years by imposing state atheism. Bell towers and minarets were destroyed, churches transformed into warehouses, mosques into factories. Priests and religious who refused to renounce their faith were arrested. In the mind of Hoxha, who considered himself the savior of Albania after the wounds of the Second World War, in the land of eagles, there should be space only for nationalism, for love of one's motherland, for albinism. And therefore, religion, which can open minds and hearts, risked becoming an obstacle to this process. And for this reason, it was banned by law. Albania is an extreme case. But historically in the past and even today, imposing atheism is a cheap way to dominate peoples. Perhaps it is not codified in the laws as it was in the country that paradoxically gave birth to Mother Teresa of Kolkata. But sometimes more underhand, hidden ways are chosen, especially these days when, thanks to social media and networks, we are able to cut straight to people's minds and hearts by passing on messages not only against religion but also against that thirst for God that man has, regardless of whether or not he or she belongs to a community of believers. Gaudium et Spes warned that when the proponents of this doctrine gain governmental control, they vigorously fight against religion and promote atheism by using, especially the education of youth, those means of pressure which public power has at its disposal. But to impose or even simply try to spread atheism as the dominant faith risks being futile. While we consider pain, suffering, death, and the evil that is there, what we can think of is this, that there is a personal encounter with Christ, which in this scenario makes the absolute sense. And this is one thing that makes us think. Every authentic encounter with Jesus remains alive in memory. It is never forgotten. You forget many encounters, but a true encounter with Jesus remains forever. Christ incarnated in history, but he also manifests himself today, every day, perhaps in the people who happen to be next to you. He met with people, ate with them, revealing the mystery of the Father, announcing a new world, a new revolution for those people who were waiting for a Messiah, who would free them from the yoke of the Roman Empire, and who would never imagined that they would be given a much greater freedom. This is how Gaudium et Spes summarizes all of this. By his incarnation, the Son of God has united himself in some fashion with every man. He worked with human hands, he thought with a human mind, acted by a human choice, and loved with a human heart. Born of the Virgin Mary, he has truly been made one of us, like us in all things except sin. As an innocent lamb, he merited for us life by the free shedding of his own blood. In him, God reconciled us to himself and among ourselves. From bondage to the devil and sin, he delivered us, so that each one of us can say with the apostle, "The Son of God loved me and gave himself up for me." By suffering for us, he not only provided us with an example, and death are made holy and take on a new meaning. Manuela Tully, the author of the series of The Reflection, the great theme of the meaning of life, suggests that if you want to see and experience a meaning of life that is different from what is offered to us every day by the media and social media, one suggestion is to meet the Sisters of Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Their doors are always open to everyone, but one must be mentally and spiritually prepared to even experience truly incomprehensible moments. At least they would seem incomprehensible according to the categories by which most of us understand life. The sisters, in fact, live in a manner that is truly out of the box. It may happen that they may welcome you into the kitchen while they are peeling potatoes for lunch, and perhaps they will ask you to help them. Or they might involve you in preparing parcels for some families they are going to help. Or maybe they will ask you to give someone a ride in your vehicle, to accompany that lady who does not have a car or even money for a bus ticket to the hospital for a medical examination. Why talk about the missionaries of charity in this reflection on the meaning of life? The answer is that they do the complete opposite of what the world proposes. And they are happy. Have you ever noticed they are always smiling? Among the mentally ill of Alexandria in Egypt, among the abandoned lonely women waiting to give birth in Piramavale, a Roman suburb, in difficult geopolitical contexts such as Gaza, or in Yemen where 4 of them were murdered. They have been chased out of Nicaragua by Daniela Ortega and accused of conversion in the country where it all began, India. Yet they smile. Manuela concludes by remembering that the sister cook of a house of the missionaries in Rome used to be very happy every time someone brought her Parmesan cheese as a gift, a somewhat expensive product, but one that could transform her recipes, above all when she was preparing something for the poorest families in the quarter. The volunteers, knowing this, occasionally brought her a piece just to witness that irrepressible joy. One day, she was not there and another sister opened the kitchen door. "We have brought some Parmesan cheese for Sister Mary." "Thanks, but are you sure it's for her? She can't even eat it. She is allergic to Parmesan cheese." Thus, we discover that the joy of the cooking nun was for others. In giving, freely giving, one can discover meaning for one's own life. In conclusion, life is not a walk in the park. Sometimes it is a really difficult pilgrimage full of hardships and pains. But nevertheless, there are those who, supported by faith, find the meaning of life. Such is the mystery of man, and it is a great one, as seen by believers in the light of Christian revelation. Through Christ and in Christ, the riddles of sorrow and death grow meaningful. Apart from His gospel, they all overwhelm us. Christ has risen, destroying death by His death. He has lavished life upon us so that as sons and daughters in the Son, we can cry out in the Spirit, "Abba, Father," as we read in Gaudium et Spes, Article 22. And in Article 21, we are reminded that to the big existential questions that are repeated from generation to generation on death, pain, poverty, sickness, injustice, betrayal, and war, we are faced with the questions of why? What is the meaning of life? And here only God can fully and most certainly provide an answer as He summons man and woman to higher knowledge and humbler probing. To quote Pope Francis, life grows by being given away, and it weakens in isolation and comfort. Indeed, those who enjoy life most are those who leave security on the shore and become excited by the mission of communicating life to others. The meaning of life, the Pope said during the Mass at the altar of the chair in St. Peter's Basilica on the 3rd of November 2018, is found in our response to God's offer of love. And that response is made up of true love, self-giving, and service. Whatever will remain of life at the threshold of eternity is not what we gained, but what we gave away. And in this giving, may you and I find true meaning of our lives. Thank you.